I don't think that anybody could look back on the roughest, toughest parts of their lives and say, that didn't get me to where I am now, right? And we always get through it. Like when you look back, you've always made it through.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, creators, and disruptors who are fueling innovation in emerging markets across the country. I'm Tyler Kelley.
And I'm Leigh-Ann Buchanan. And today, it's different. There's only two of us, and we're flipping the script a little bit. I realized Tyler's interviewed me, but I have never interviewed Tyler. So that's what we're going to do. You ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
This is going to be fun. So, Tyler, you're normally the one asking questions, so this is great for you to be in the hot seat. Tell us, what is your superpower, and how did you first discover it?
Now, I knew you were going to ask that question,
Predictable.
but I wasn't prepared. It's crazy, my superpower. I think like from a business perspective, my superpower is process. Being able to see processes and optimize them in a way that makes sense.
And when did you first discover that process was your superpower? Because I know in this conversation, we're absolutely going to get to the many different career hats you've worn over the years. But when did it first become clear to you that process was where you shine?
That's a great question. If I were to change my superpower answer,
It's your show.
my true superpower.
Okay.
All right. So, and process goes into this, but process is like step two. Step one is like this gut feeling that I have that something is getting ready to happen. And so I relate this to the thong song.
Okay.
Now, you knew I wasn't going to go there.
No, I didn't. I'm really surprised. So tell us how this relates to Cisco.
So in college, I was a DJ.
Oh.
And one of the greatest frustrations that a DJ has is knowing that a song is good, but nobody knows it yet until they start to hear it on the radio, and then they all want to hear it.
Yeah.
So if you release a song too early, like you get the boos, you're like, this song is horrible. And that happened with Thong Song, and I'm like, this song is going to be hot. And then like 3 months later, like that's the only request I got.
Yeah.
But the point is I saw it early. And so I think that's really my true superpower, whether it's like business opportunities, investing, just like the direction that people are headed. I see that stuff early, and then developing a process to not play the song early, right? Because even though you see it early, you can't release it early, because if you're too early, what happens?
That's actually a good point that I want to unpack a little bit, which is understanding how you develop the patience and kind of just basically the patience to know that you're right, to know you're onto something, but making sure that the timing is right for when you really move into action. How did you learn to develop that and not just jump the gun?
Trial and error. And just listening to your gut, right? Like listening to that inner voice of just like knowing what's right and what's for you and what's not right for you at the moment. Like Miami is a perfect example, right? It's been 6 years?
Wow, it has,
Like
yes.
5.5, 6 years, something like that. Like I knew that Miami was going to be hot. We all, and I came down and met a lot of
Yes.
people that knew the same thing. But now here we are, 2022. And Miami is the place to be.
Yeah, Miami just ranked number 2 on the Forbes list of tech hubs in the country. It beat Austin, it beat New York, and you had the foresight to bet on Miami early. I want to go back a moment to hear your journey, because I know that you've had a stint in mortgages. I now know you were a DJ. You run an amazing digital marketing agency. Walk us through kind of the milestones in your career journey.
Well, I mean, it starts with, I've always been an entrepreneur, meaning it's been very difficult for me to work for other people. It's just not in my DNA. But it all started as a DJ in college, so I was that nightlife party DJ. And then I was like, I can make money doing this doing the mobile DJ thing. And so at that time, this is late 90s, I go out and buy a bunch of equipment. And then I'm like, okay, I need to advertise. I think I was a junior in college. And so I need to advertise. I call the Yellow Pages.
Oh, wow. Yellow Pages. Haven't heard that in a moment.
And I said, I want to put an ad in there, like a quarter page. And they're like, okay, $500. And I'm like, what? $500? I don't have $500. I had already maxed my credit cards out on equipment. And so I said, okay, no, thank you. And I had to go to plan B, which plan B was at the time, I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out this website thing. So I figured out how to build a website. Back then it was in Microsoft Front Page.
Oh, wow.
Super old school. What you see is what you get editor. And then once it was built, it was like, okay, how am I going to get people to see it? And that's when I started to learn SEO. So this was 1999. Google came out in 1998. And so it was just perfect timing. And so taught myself SEO, had a pretty successful DJ business, making my fiance and I at the time maybe like 40, 50 grand a year, which is pretty decent, for that age. And then from there, built out some other websites, which were wedding websites, because that's where the people were that needed mobile DJs. So I built a local directory type sites, spent my first year after graduation just in my parents' basement building websites essentially. And that's where it all started. And then I began to get hired doing digital marketing, SEO. In 2005, Google AdWords came out or was released to the public. So started to do that and did that for the mortgage industry and was doing so well with it. I was like, I'm going to start my own mortgage company because like I said, I can't work for anyone. Did that. And then 2008, 2009, lost everything, but it was a good experience. Kind of rebuilt from there, did some DJing, did some digital marketing, and eventually found
Slam.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about your story is that A, you're an entrepreneur at heart, we can definitely tell, but B, you seem to have a learner's approach to what some would call failure. Talk to us about how you have adjusted your mindset to not just give up when things don't go as planned or when you face circumstances like kind of the mortgage crisis that forces you to start from scratch.
So how not to give up at that time? It's difficult. Like I can look back on it now and say, this is what to do. But at the time, like it's the end of the world, right? So anybody that's going through that, it's hard to say here, it's going to get better in a few months or in a few years. But that's always what happens. I don't think that anybody could look back on the roughest, toughest parts of their lives and say, that didn't get me to where I am now, right? And we always get through it. Like when you look back, you've always made it through, right? So learning from that, in the startup world, people like to say failure is, finish that line, failure is...
There's so many. Failure is actually not a failure. It's a lesson to be learned.
Something like that, right? But the key is in learning from the failure. Like they have like failure parties like in San Francisco. Not sure how much learning is happening there.
It's catharsis.
But if you learn from it, then failure's good. And so what I learned from 2008, 2009, entering into the COVID era was like, I need to eliminate all expenses because of the unknown of COVID. When it first, in March 2020, we started as a company to just eliminate all unnecessary expenses and to do it immediately and not wait. So that was something that I learned and was able to take into Slam.
You've had a substantial history in and depth of experience in the digital marketing space. Like you mentioned, starting right after Google, which is the very early days. How have you seen the industry evolve, and what trends do you think people should pay attention to that's on the horizon?
So the crazy thing about marketing, I think, is that there are certain principles that never change. And if to be a good marketer, to be a good business owner, a salesperson, like I think you should learn the principles. And then from there, like you'll see things that are changing, but a lot of times they're just putting a different name on like the same thing.
Interesting.
So for instance, SEO, search engine optimization, early 2000s. Then it became blogging, which was a part of that. Then it became content marketing. It's like it's all the same thing, with different names,
Yep.
which is just like getting your content out. I mean, and really like the principle is to create content that people can engage with,
Yep.
because if they're engaging with that content, then you're showing like the search engines of the world, the algorithms of the world, that your content's valuable, and therefore they're going to show it to more people.
That's a great marketing principle. And for someone that is not a marketer, that's something that I think when I look at where we've been successful in our organizations and getting our message out there, that's really at the core. What are some other key or foundational marketing principles that you live by without giving away your secrets?
Well, I think good copy
Okay.
is amazing, right? So like if you look on my bookshelf, it's a lot of copywriting books. I think that's something that people neglect, and just learning how to communicate with people in a way that makes them think, and ideally makes them think the way that you want them to think. A lot of times people say that marketing is bad because it might, or advertising, because it might make people do stuff that they don't want to do. But marketing can also be good because you're helping people realize what's good for them.
Oh, that's a different spin. So create content that people want to engage with. Second, don't neglect the copy, because that is how you communicate the why and the action that you want. Any other key tips you have for people that are entrepreneurs or launching their companies that realize marketing is important to what they do, but they may not be as familiar with how to even approach it?
Don't chase the shiny red object,
Ooh, that's a good one.
which
Why?
happens a lot. Or like, don't look at what your competitors are doing and think that they're doing the right things. Like they may be just blowing a lot of money somewhere. And so like with the shiny red object, it is, it might be like TikTok. Well, if you are a local law firm, you probably don't need to be on TikTok. If you're a national shoe brand, definitely, right?
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
Like this is a line from Too Short. Get in where you fit in.
Oh, I love it. So speaking of Too Short, what most people don't know about you is you are quite like the hip hop aficionado. So I want to ask you a little bit more about when you started to first fall in love with the genre, maybe as a DJ, maybe before, and what is by far the best song ever? Like
Ever.
your number one, the best song.
Wow, that's an amazing question. So it's crazy because as I age, it's difficult to listen to hip hop.
It's really
especially
different
from
now.
like even from the 90s, like just like the subject matter is not something that like you can just be like driving down the street listening to,
Especially if you have kids.
if you're not a teenager anymore. You know what I mean? But back then it was like the Defiant.
Yeah.
Right. Gosh, you're putting me on the spot with like this song, and I know it. I can think of it right now. DJ. Okay, this is old school too. I bet you. Can I look at my phone?
Of course. Okay, you can break the rules because you're a co-host. You get a little bit of privilege here.
So I'm going to my Spotify for those of you that are listening.
We should definitely start asking people like, what is the last Spotify song that they
That you
played?
liked?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
that you liked.
So the last song that I liked is "Coming in Hot" by Andy Mineo. Have you heard
Oh,
this
I
song?
love that
It's amazing.
song.
And then the one right before that was "Rare" by Nas off his new album.
Okay.
So,
So Nas
but my favorite of all time, it's on here. And then you can also just see the variety of like, and then I have like Elton John and like OAR, like just crazy.
so very eclectic
variety.
taste in music. But I think as a former DJ, that's what you would expect because you have to cater to so many different tastes and preferences. And not everybody likes what is in the top 40.
This is true. So
got your favorite?
I hope I don't butcher the artist. I believe it's MC Front. Do you remember MC Front?
No, but
Okay, so there's a song and it has this amazing sample, and it's in my list somewhere. I will find it in a second, but it's called "There Ain't No Future in Your Frontin'."
ooh, there ain't no future
Do you
in your
remember
front.
that?
I do not, but I feel like on the outro we should totally add in a little bit of a
we should.
like the
Yeah.
fair
And I'll
fair
find
use
it,
snippet.
and after this I'll play it for you.
So
but
why is that
Google
song?
it. It's
Why does that
amazing.
song resonate with you?
the sample?
The sample,
Like
okay.
you got. I mean, and it's early '90s
Okay.
rap, hip hop. So this is like before Snoop Dogg, before Biggie. Like this is when hip hop was just starting to be something,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and I was too young for like the early days of like New York hip hop,
Yes.
right? So that didn't really resonate with me. people just a tad bit older probably would know all those songs that I can't even think of right now
Yeah.
that are on the hip hop documentaries, right? But it was like just after that time when you had like Kool Moe Dee. You remember Kool Moe Dee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is
Wild
your
Wild West.
that is your sweet spot. Before we get to our lightning-ish round of stories, what is one piece of advice that you would leave with someone who is listening to this conversation? It's one piece of advice you would leave.
One piece of advice. I think that just to follow your heart, right? I know that sounds cliche, but I'm trying to. So what happens is we go to the office, we get busy, we get into our day, and we forget to listen to ourselves. And so I think that it's important just to take time to like communicate with yourself and to just listen.
And as someone who is driven by intuition and kind of gut feeling, I can imagine developing the practice of really checking in with yourself and listening has been critical in driving your decision making. So, okay.
Lightning round.
Lightning rounds. I'm so excited for this one. So a dream. So you've got to complete the sentence with a little bit of an anecdote, but short, sweet, and to the point. A dream I've never shared.
A dream I've never shared. I feel like I've shared a lot. So like if I could just like wave a magic wand and be able to do something, like it would be to be able to communicate with everyone. So I always even before college, like my dream was to be like a radio program manager.
Really?
Because I wanted everyone to hear what I heard in music. You know what I mean? So I wanted to just like blast it, right? Like if I was driving down the street, you would hear my music.
Okay.
And so, but part of that is just like being able to communicate too.
Yeah.
Like, and so I think like if I could speak every language and communicate with everyone, that would be a
I
pretty
love
cool
that.
dream.
The kindest thing anyone has ever done for me.
Gosh. That's a tough one because, and I'll tell you the reason why is because I try to practice very clearly, like just being here and now. And so for me, I have a very short-term memory. I really do. And so to just think back is difficult, honestly. So the kindest thing today is like you saying, let's do this interview.
Oh, okay. Well,
There you go.
You're very welcome. Here's one. I'm proud I stood up for myself when.
Gosh. Same, it's the same issue, like that short-term memory.
Okay.
I would think for hours. And that's the thing. Like I always come back like 10 minutes later with a great answer. But
Okay.
it just takes time.
So you still got to answer the question. I'm proud I stood up for myself when.
Gosh. I don't know. Not to say that I haven't. I'd say with kids, like you have to at some point kind of just draw a line, but still be compassionate and loving. And so maybe there's been times where it's like, okay, like we've had enough.
Yeah.
Mom and dad have had enough. It's time to like
Simmer.
go to your room. Yeah.
And that could be good. That can be an interesting kind of dynamic because as a parent, like they're your heart. So you want to do everything. You don't want to see them upset, but they also got to learn discipline. And these are natural kind of boundaries that you have to set in life as part of the development process. So that makes sense. So this one's fun and you don't have to think far back for it.
Okay.
The celebrity I'd want to play me in a movie.
In a movie.
Oof. The Tyler Show about Innovation City or your life.
Yeah, gosh. I don't know. So somebody told me that I look like Sam Smith. I know he's not an actor.
Oh, I could, especially with the hair. I could see it.
Okay. And I can't sing at all. But maybe like, Matt Damon.
Ooh,
Tom
Matt Damon.
Cruise.
He's a great actor.
Tom Cruise is too short, but Matt
He can
Damon's a
adjust the
great
height of the
actor.
camera.
My favorite actor is probably Vince Vaughn, though.
Oh,
but
Vince
he
Vaughn's
just
great.
probably couldn't play me.
Okay. So last and final question of our very special Oh, this is good. Very special episode. So I'm most proud of my family for.
So we do. So there's this. It's called EOS. It's called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and we've adapted that for our family.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. And so we have our core values, and just so my wife and I, we have what's called quarterly rocks, which are the things that we need to get done, and it works really well for families. But I think I'm most proud of just being able to implement that as a family, and kind of really at this point with the kids. It's less about the rocks. It's more about these are the value. These are our non-negotiables as a family, and let's make it happen.
That is such a great model, because a lot of times in family environments, people are scared to put that type of structure. But it seems with your family, it allows you to flourish.
It works.
Awesome. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for agreeing to my crazy idea of having a conversation with you just as host, sitting down. I really enjoyed getting to know you more. I can't wait to play that song so we can really hear it. And I know people know how to get in touch with you, but once again, for the audience, where can they get in touch with Tyler?
On social media, I am Tyler Kelley with an EY, and at slamagency.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you. This was fun.
This is great.
Thank you for listening to Innovation City. If you like this episode, you can find more episodes at innovationcity.co or anywhere where you watch or listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next week.
This is where it